Hello, friends! Thanks for joining me again. It's been so beautiful and sunny this week. I have loved spending time outside, riding my bike, walking my dog, and just sitting enjoying the sunshine. What do you like to do in the sun? Awesome! Today we're going to do an experiment that harnesses the power of the sun to learn about melting point. What is melting point? Melting point is the temperature at which an object will go from a solid to a liquid, which we call melting. What happens when you go outside in the sunshine on a hot day with an ice cream cone? You're right, pretty soon it melts. What happens to you when you go outside? You're right, you might get hot or sweaty or even get a sunburn if you don't put on too much sunscreen. Every object in the world is able to melt, but they all melt at a different temperature. Some require really high temperatures to melt, and some melt quickly, like ice or ice cream. Today we're going to test what the melting point of different objects is by asking, will it melt in the sun? All you need for this experiment is a baking sheet or muffin tin, maybe some foil if you'd like to protect your baking sheet, and some different objects to test. You can test anything you find around your house. Things that you think might melt and things that you think won't melt are awesome ways to start. Before you start, be sure to pull out your science journal. You might set your science journal up to look something like this. At the top, it has our experimental question, will it melt in the sun? Then one column has the objects that we will be testing, like carrots, butter, and a quarter for me. But you would put whatever objects you test here. Then next to each object, put your prediction. Will it melt in the sun? Yes or no? Below that is a place where you can put your observations. I suggest you draw what your tray looks like before you place it in the sun, and then again, maybe after 1 hour, and then again after 2 hours, or maybe only at the end of a waiting period. It's super easy to set up this experiment. All you'll do is take your baking sheet or muffin tin, add some foil on top to protect it, and then place all of your materials that you're going to test, all of the objects that you're going to test on your baking sheet. For my experiment, I'm going to ask, will crayons melt in the sun? So I'm going to unwrap some crayons and place them in one corner of my baking sheet. Next, I'm going to ask, will a quarter melt in the sun? Place that on my baking sheet. I've also got a piece of carrot, a cube of cheese, some chocolate, and a chunk of butter. Once you have all your objects laid out on your baking sheet, just bring it out into the sunshine, lay it in a sunny place, and wait. You'll come back in a few hours to make observations about what has happened. Before I put it in the sun, my tray looks like this. All of my objects are solid. None of them have melted into a liquid state. Let's watch and see what happens. After 30 minutes, I went back out to check on my experiment. The carrot, quarter, and crayons were all entirely still solids. The butter had mostly melted down into a liquid, and the chocolate was somewhere in between. The cheese seems to have disappeared, likely from a cheese bandit that tends to roam these parts. 30 minutes after that, nothing much has changed except the butter is very liquidy and the chocolate is beginning to melt even more. An hour after that, the chocolate is fully melted, the butter is still melted, and the carrot, crayons, and quarter are still solids. So what did we learn? What conclusions can we draw from this experiment? We saw that the butter and the chocolate melted. It looked like the crayons might have started to melt, but not all the way. The carrot and the quarter stayed entirely in their solid state and did not begin to melt. From this, we can conclude that butter has the lowest melting point, or the lowest temperature when it goes from a solid to a liquid. Next up is chocolate. It's about 70 degrees out today, so the butter and the chocolate likely have a melting point around 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Then, I believe crayons are next. Their melting point is somewhere around 120 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Next, the carrot. The internet is very divided on what the melting point of a carrot is, but we know that a quarter is made up of mostly nickel and copper, which melt at a temperature of 2,647 degrees Fahrenheit. That's really hot. See you later!